So the iPhone was announced 10 years ago, or unveiled, as Steve Jobs likes to put it, this year. It's 10 years old, January 9th, 2007 to be exact, and it changed just about everything about most of our ordinary lives. Babies prefer it to their babas. Try to find a subway car in which 90% of people aren't facing their screens directly. Go on a hike and not see a person stop to take a selfie. Come to my 4-generation family Seder last night and watch the cell phones click, 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 click. We almost didn't have an unrecorded experience. Or go to a dinner party where no one Googles the answer to the question before anybody can even come up with it. Watch someone feel herself up or down. My cell phone. Where's my cell phone? God, excuse me. I don't want to be without it. Someone might be calling. What if you leave it behind? What if you lose it? Your whole day could be ruined. And how could the day possibly proceed on its own terms? My son, Jacob, thank you very much, it's a great coat, even gave me a Patagonia coat last year for Christmas that has its own pocket right here, so I can keep it close to my heart all the time. So today, I want to do to Easter what Steve Jobs did to me. See, he changed my life in a way that before he changed it, I could not have imagined the way in which he was going to change it. I couldn't have imagined the way he was going to change my life. Staring at a screen so much of the time, the way I do now, or talking to my friend in California whenever I want to, or watching TV, or no longer needing a map or a memory is a big change. It's a great change. And, I'm old enough to remember when to call home from college, you had to pay a long-distance charge, and my parents were the kind of parents who, when I would call on Sunday night, because everybody else was calling on Sunday night, they would refuse the charges. So I had to save up my money if I wanted to talk to them. Now I can talk to my mother anytime for the same rate. So I just couldn't have predicted the size of the change. And it only cost me a couple $100 a month, more or less. It is a big change, and it is what advertisers call success. It met a need I did not know I had, right? I didn't know I needed it, and there it is, and I like it. Kind of, sort of. Most of the time. Like Bob Dylan's music, the cell phone has the gift of the compressed narrative. It moves in quick, and it just has tentacles, and it does whatever you want it to do. It does all that it does while kind of simplifying existence to a few clicks and a password. You could live on your cell phone, and pretty soon, I'm betting, more of us will. You don't have to like it, and I do see some of you snorting, but you can't ignore its clear alternative to life as we used to know it. Understanding Easter is similar. It involves a lot of unlearning as well as learning. Easter is often simplified to some hocus pocus about life after death, which is not and cannot be evidence-based. We can't know what happens after death, nor do we know what happens after death, nor will we know what happens after death. So with all due respect, and I'm serious, for people who really strongly believe in life after death, permit me to say that Easter's grandness is not about life after death. It is comforting, of course, to know that something might be out there or beyond us or beyond our individual existence or our loved ones' individual existence. And because you can't know, by the way, it could be so, as well as not so. But you can't know. Many of us are comforted by that visit from the one we have lost, kind of the way Jesus showed up to Mary at the tomb. Roland, our custodian, beloved custodian, who died the day before the election in the fall, often comes to me with a breakfast sandwich. It's right there. And of course, Roland is really dead, but not really either. The human mind and the psyche is a marvelous thing, and it lets us remember people. We have visitations. When we die, we don't become like butterflies pinned in someone's collection. You've seen them, right? And you just put their wings pin by pin by pin, and then you just stay there. It's not like that. When we die, people and memories show up in the most uncanny of places, like the human memory, or in photos, or on a cell phone, or voicemails where we have neglected to change the voicemail. And when you call one person, you get the other and say, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?" We may not live physically after death or in some incomprehensible place called eternity, but we do live emotionally and metaphorically inside the lives we have touched, and in photographs that make us almost look real. I just love the new ritual at most memorials, and boy, have we had a lot of them this year, where we have a video of the whole life of the person. We see him or her as a child, and then as a teenager, and in their wedding outfit, and as they've matured, and at the baptisms of their children, and then finally we're honest enough to take a picture of them in their hospital bed with their hair gone, and a little crumpled, and a little rolled up. It's a beautiful way to understand life and death. So putting aside the life after death literalism, how is Easter allowed to make us as different as the cell phone did? Here is the reason, and many, many preachers put it this way. Death is not our enemy. It is not our enemy. If we didn't move on, who would move in? And if somebody hadn't moved on for me, where would I be? What would happen? You know those apple blossoms in the park across the street? So full, so pre-perfect right now, so before the next storm that will scatter them all over, just pink dust everywhere. If those apple blossoms were here all year long, I'm betting we'd stop bothering to notice them. Death, as the poets say, is the mother of beauty. Death drives us to appreciate the short span that we have. It also brings us into relationship with all that was and all that will be. Eternity is your 70 or 80 or 90 or 100 years, or you're 23, or you're 33. That's your eternity. Jesus rightly asked Mary, "Why are you crying?" And so if all you want and all you can take is a side of Jesus today, remember, first of all, the sides are almost usually the best part of the meal. But if all you can take is a side of Jesus, if that's all that'll fit for you, take his question, "Why are you weeping? Why are you crying? I am dead, and it's okay. I'm all right. I'm here. I know," says Jesus to Mary, "I know how the story ends. It ends well. It ends good. The ice melts. Things change. I have come to prepare a place for you to realize your full and true humanity. That's why I came, and that's why I got out of the way." I did not come to do it for you. I came to do it with you. He came to challenge the powers of domination and then get out of our way so we could continue on the path of making all things new and good. Jesus is an emissary showing us the way to our ideal and true humanity. And we can have that job description if we want to, too. He came to tell us not to weep. And that change from weeping to joy as a habitual way of being makes the iPhone's impact look small. Most of us, you see, remain pinned in someone else's scrapbook. We follow instructions, and some of us even follow orders. We refuse our full humanity on behalf of something that looks like it will avoid suffering and death, but actually causes it instead. Being afraid to die comes to mind. Why? We came here to die. We are like logs rolling down the river, cut for use, headed home. We came to earth to be put to use, and the best use for a human being is to learn to love. We came to earth to love and then split. We came not for weeping, but for joy. Even the very short life, like Jesus's, can release joy. Jesus, you see, makes all the work of Saul Alinsky, Gandhi, and Dr. King look small. It's not a small accomplishment, and it doesn't make them small either. As many of us like to say, I just want to make a contribution. I just want to make a contribution, and Jesus did. He reimagined death right in front of us and said, Mary, why weep? He founded a movement that has lasted, and by the way, that has plenty of room in it for you and for me. He wasn't bad at secession, as so many people are. A couple of my relatives, and I've now seen their climb on Facebook, visited a cemetery in New Orleans and didn't realize that it closed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they got locked in. Like so many of us, they were locked in a cemetery, one where we spend the morning regretting something, the afternoon worrying about why we're regretting so long, and the evening regretting our worries and drowning our sorrows in something store-bought in a bottle or a jar. We spend our days wishing someone would name a bridge or at least a tunnel or a postcard after us, or at least notice us. Just notice me, when all we need to really do is notice them, and in that noticing find a kind of immortality. Anyway, my relatives, only one of which is kind of spry, climbed over the fence and got out. The other one apparently needed help. Today, Easter invites you to join them and climb out of the place where you fear death enough to worry your days. Why weep? What's it going to get us? So, death is normal. Death is inevitable. But better put, repeating, it is normal. It's ordinary. Nobody's bigger than death. It's not a mistake that God made. It's an intention of the divine that we live to die. It's the pattern of the world. Some Jews pray a beautiful prayer. I can't do all of it, but I know it starts because my rabbi friend told me, Zoke kefufim. And it means pray the bend. That means pray into your diminishment, the way you too will bend and even break. Pray thanksgiving for the bend that is coming. Diminishment, like death, is also ordinary. Why weep about it? It's normal. Elizabeth Bishop's most famous poem is The Art of Losing. And she tells us that we can learn a little bit about it every day. She says the art of losing is not hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be, that their loss is no disaster. She advises, lose something every day. Accept the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. We get so many chances to lose. Why not learn from them? So if the cell phone kind of bothers you, I know a lot of people have complex relationships with their cell phones. I know, I do too. Let's look at one more quick way to see Easter and its death, resurrection cycle through the simplicity of dust that we declare ourselves to be at the end. Physicists join poets in telling us that dust is actually still living as stardust. Poet Sharon Olds gave names to her dust bunnies. Paul Martin, the poet, says, "Before I start the new fire, I shovel out the cold ashes and scatter them over the vegetable garden with a white dust." Marilyn Nelson puts it like this: "Thank you for those tiny particles of ocean salt, pearl necklace viruses, and winged protozoans, for the infinite, intricate shapes of submicroscopic living things, bonded by vital, mutual, genetic cooperation." I love this phrase. That's what we're here to do. Mutual, genetic cooperation through the life-giving power of the dust that you can't get rid of. That dust cloth and that feather duster isn't going to get rid of it all. And guess what? You don't want to get rid of it all. The reality of our death is also full of life, as was the death of Jesus. And anything, dust or your cell phone, that drives you to appreciate life before you die gives death a good name. Knowing that you will pass and that the loved ones you have will also pass is a fountain, not a drain, a wellspring, not a swamp. And everything will change if we refuse to weep and appreciate this day. Amen.